Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki, and I am a digitally focused technical evangelist at AWS. You can usually find me live coding on Twitch, but today I have the pleasure of joining you for this webinar. So what we're going to do is we are going to build a serverless app with a side of ML using the AWS Toolkit, which is one of my favorite new dev tools that AWS has just become generally available actually last week. So let's get started here. So our agenda today is what is serverless. If you're not familiar, we're going to touch on that. What does the architecture look like of the little app that I'm going to build? And then let's build it. So what is serverless? I like to define serverless by three fundamental things. No infrastructure to build or manage, my favorite thing. I'm not particularly fond of building infrastructure or managing it. I only pay for what I use, so that's great. I lower my costs, and it's a cost-effective way to build a lot of solutions. And I don't have to predict usage of my users, so I don't have to know how many people are going to be on the site at 3 p.m. tomorrow. It's just going to scale automatically for me, which is great. So you see my little to-do list? Absolutely nothing. So what are we going to build? So we are going to build a serverless app that responds to a text message with the help of Twilio that analyzes the sentiment of your text message and then sends it back to you. And these are the pieces that are going to make that possible. So you have your cell phone. You're going to send me a text to my Twilio phone number. I am going to add a webhook to my Twilio phone number, which is an API gateway endpoint for a Lambda function. That'll be my serverless function where I will write some Python code and I will hit comprehend with the text message that you send me, and then I will send your sentiment back to your phone. And so then you should get a text back from me saying what your sentiment was. Hopefully all of your text messages will be like, I love this webinar, Nikki, you're the best. And that will be a positive sentiment, obviously. But yeah, so that's how it works. That's what we're going to do today. And then without further ado, let's begin the live coding. Hopefully the demo gods are going to, do right by me today. So let's break out of this. Okay, so let's talk about the AWS VS Toolkit, VS Code Toolkit for a second. So if you don't have it installed, you're going to go to extensions and you are going to search. Oh, look, it's right at the top because I already have it installed. But if you search AWS Toolkit, and if I could spell correctly, it's going to come up for you. And there it is. Beautiful AWS Toolkit for VS Code. VS Code's like my favorite thing in the whole world. It's my bae. So this toolkit makes my life super easy, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is to build and deploy a fully functional application with the toolkit. If you install it, though, and you don't have credentials already on your computer in a user file, so usually they go under your user and they're in a .aws file. If you don't have those because you've never used a toolkit before, or you've never used a CLI tool or any of our tools that would have created those files for you, the VS Toolkit will walk you through that and create those files for you by taking down your access key and secret. But of course, I already have them installed. I already have those files and I already have it installed. So we're just going to go ahead and take advantage of using it. So we just go back to here. I don't have any folder open. So let's quickly jump to my terminal and create a new folder for this webinar. Okay, so how about Twilio, what should we call it? Twilio Sentiment Webinar. Bingo. Okay, so now we're in the folder. So I'm actually just going to open code here. Now we're right back in an instance of VS Code. And I'm going to use my command palette in VS Code, which if you're not familiar is Command-Shift-P on a Mac or Control-Shift-P on a Windows. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-P and then my command palette is going to come up. And in my command palette, I have a number of commands, but with the toolkit, several of them you can see were installed. So I can create new SAM application, deploy, I can do a ton of things. We're going to use a bunch of these today, but the first one we need is create. We're going to go ahead and hit create. And it's going to ask me, what language do you want to build your SAM same application in, and I want to do Python 3.7. And then what folder do you want to put it in? The one we just created. We need a name. Okay, so Twilio sentiment. Maybe I should just call it the same thing, but I'll just like lowercase it. Bingo. That's going to be the name of my stack because SAM is the serverless application model, and it is an extension of CloudFormation, so it's going to help me deploy a serverless application through a CloudFormation stack. And so I just named my CloudFormation stack essentially. Okay, so let's move this outline down. So what do we have in here? So we have this nice little template. And we're going to add some stuff to the template here. So we need to first change the name of a lot of things because we don't want to create a hello world function. We want to create a Twilio sentiment function. Let's see. The code URI is just like what folder it's going to pull out of. I don't really need to change the name of that folder. It's not harming anything. The path, maybe we want to do sentiment. It's going to be a post, not a get. So for example, we don't want a hello world API. We want a sentiment API. And we don't want a hello world function. We want a Twilio sentiment function. And we don't need a hello world function IAM role. Let's just call it a sentiment function IAM role. And you can change all these values, the description, like we need to have this reflect what it is they're going to do. And then all these values need to change as well. So these need to match. And amazingly, this will break if you do not match all these values. So I'm just changing the name so that the stuff that we deploy adequately reflects what it is that we're doing, and we can find it all. Because hello world doesn't really help me out all that much for the sentiment function. See, all right, so everything there looks good. So we need to add one policy here because our function is going to call comprehend, and luckily SAM has these nice built-in already pre-created IAM policies that you can use. So we're going to take advantage of one of those, and that is the comprehend basic access policy. Whoops. Just like that. So we added that to our SAM template. Let's see what else we got here. If there's anything else that we should change. Everything looks good. Hopefully it'll work. Oh, events. Let's change this to sentiment. Okay, cool. Everything else looks great now. All right, so let's save our SAM template and let's go write some code. All right, so where does the code live in this little SAM project? It lives in this main Python app.py file. And this is where we're going to change the code. And so right now there's a bunch of comments in here about helpful things that I could be doing, but we don't need any of that. So we're going to delete it. Oops, I accidentally deleted something. I want that return statement. Try that again. Comments it out. Interesting. Oh, I got to delete this. That's why. Bingo. Okay, so we are going to receive an event from Twilio, and I just actually want to point out really cool things right here. So this is a feature of code. Well, we're taking advantage of Code Lens through VS Code, and our AWS VS Toolkit is what's allowing these to be shown. We can actually run this app locally by clicking this and debug and on breakpoints locally as well. So that's an awesome feature of the AWS VS Code Toolkit. And basically it's possible through Code Lens. Okay, so what are we going to do? So we're going to write a function that hits comprehend, as I mentioned, and takes in the Twilio event. And so we don't really know what the Twilio event looks like, but I happen to know what it looks like. So I'm going to try to write the code to dissect it. It does come in as a URL, so we're going to need a URL parser. And we also need to import our SDK. So we're going to import Boto3 up the top. We don't need requests. And then we're going to save. Okay, so the first thing we know is that it's going to come in the body of the event object. So let's go ahead and pull that out. And we might want to print it so we just see what is actually coming to us. And we could go and, back to Twilio, we could deploy this, get the link, set up the webhook, and just print out the body. But I happen to actually know what the body looks like. So I'm going to write a little bit more code just to see if we can grab the whole parsed part of the body so we can pull out the actual text of the text message in preparation to send it to comprehend. So we're going to say parsed, and we're going to use the parser that we imported, and we're going to parse the body. And then to pull out the actual text of the text message, parsed is an object with a key of body, but it is capital. And then it's going to be the 0th element inside that object. So let's actually print that, make sure that we're getting back the right thing. And I think this is good just for testing. The one thing we do need to do is we're going to have to change this return object. The Twilio uses their own markup language called Twilio like ML, which is like Twilio XML basically. And so we need to respond back not in JSON but in XML in order for Twilio to send a text message back to your device. So we need to change the body a little bit here and add an appropriate header of application XML. So let's go ahead and do that now. So it's like, I think we can actually pull the Twilio ML. Let's go ahead, TwyML, that's what it's called. Bingo. Their own little markup language. So this is exactly what we need right here. So we're going to turn that into a string. A lot nicer than what I just did. There we go. And then the actual response isn't going to work unless we add a header here. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Add a headers object. And we will add content type of exactly what I said, which is application XML. Bingo. Okay, so all we're doing at this minute is we are taking the event, printing it out, printing the body of the event specifically, and then we're going to parse that, assuming that it's a URL, and grab the capital body of the object and the 0th element, so assuming that that's an array, which I know that it is, and we're going to print it. We're not actually returning anything at this minute except for hello world. So it's a very basic function right now. We could, concatenate this to return what it is that you sent, but I think we'll just leave this to deploy it and run some tests first. And let's get our webhook set up with Twilio and see if we can get something working. So let's bring up the terminal, which if you don't know the keyboard shortcut for that, it is Control tilde. And we are going to, actually, we don't even need the terminal. We can use our handy dandy VS Code toolkit. We're going to do Command-Shift-P. We're going to deploy the SAM application. Bingo. Yes, we would like to deploy that SAM template. It said what region do we want to deploy it in? How about the one that I'm in right now? Closest to Oregon at the minute. We need a bucket. Okay, so we don't have a bucket, but I'm going to use the AWS CLI to create a bucket. Nice little command, AWS S3 make bucket, and then I just have to give it an S3 URL. So how about Twilio sentiment webinar? See if that's globally unique. Bingo, we're in. So webinar is our bucket. We need a name for the deployed stack. Twilio sentiment webinar. All right, building, packaging, and deploying. So I did not have to type a CLI command. I did not have to type a SAM CLI command, an AWS CLI command. Oh, it failed, of course, live demos. All right, let's see, an error occurred. Okay, so this was a template error. So we missed something in the template. That's okay. We can fix it. All right. Let's see. Sentiment function IAM role. Maybe I named it improperly. Sentiment function IAM role matches exactly. So where else would it have shown up? Somewhere in here. Gotta find it. Maybe it's named after the function. So Twilio sentiment function. Like automatically created. Let's try that. See what happens. So again, Command Shift Palette, deploy. We know we're doing US West 2. Our bucket is Twilio sentiment webinar. Same thing. All right, let's see what happens. Failed. Lovely. Don't you love when live demos fail? Okay, undefined resource. Let's check the logs. So I'm going to go to CloudFormation, see if I can glean a little bit more than the output that it's spitting out. Fail. Review in progress. But it already failed. Here we go. Undefined resource. Maybe it's like this. Yeah, I actually think that is. It just takes the name of the function to create a role off of it. So let's try that one more time. All right, we're getting really good at deploying, but you also see how easy it is to do that. There is a positive in this. I'm probably going to type this a lot of times. It's okay, I'm prepared to do so. All right, cross your fingers. Here we go. Deploying. So this is just really a function of me changing the SAM template to match my names and stuff. I have missed things before, so it is totally plausible when you go to the SAM template and you change the names for this to happen to you. I wanted to change the names though so we could actually find things. My console probably has an infinite number of hello world functions, so we can get easily confused. It looks like it's getting a lot further than it did before, so let's see. Let's see. Always takes a second to deploy to CloudFormation. While that's going though, why don't we actually go to Twilio? So we're going to actually need one of the outputs from this stack. So it's going to spit out the outputs here, and there's the link. So let's go and set up this webhook inside Twilio. Let's go to Twilio. Oh, let's go to our console. Okay, so inside Twilio, I have some phone numbers, one actually that I've purchased, and I can set up a webhook with this phone number. I'm going to click on my one phone number, and I go down to webhooks, and I can say a message comes in. I want you to post it to my link. I'm going to save it. Oh, was there some space on that in the beginning? Hold on, let's just double check. Okay, cool. There wasn't. Okay, so we can also see logs here too as well when you guys start sending text messages in. So we're going to go to the logs, which are, maybe I have to go to the dashboard to get to the logs. New, studio. Sorry, I'm not as intimately familiar with their dashboard. It changes all the time, as opposed to ours. Might be in here. There it is, logs, bingo. Okay, so this is where we would see any logs if you start sending text messages. So it completed. Okay, so we set up the webhook. So now all we need to do to test is to send a text message to that phone number and see what prints in the console. So let's go back, show my, and send me a text. Let's see if some of your text messages are going to come in. Let's go back to our Twilio logs and see what's happening here. So, okay, so we see that there was 2 people that sent messages, great, but it's red. So I don't know that you guys are getting responses yet back, which means my Lambda isn't working. That's okay. We are going to debug this together. Okay, there was a failure attempting to retrieve the contents of this URL. Missing the authentication token. Okay, so we're getting this missing authentication error. Missing authentication token. So I'm wondering if API Gateway is putting up a problem, but I'm also wondering, I don't know if we did /Twilio. That URL is not looking right to me. So let's double check on in our SAM template if we changed that URL. Yeah, so we made it /sentiment, but I think we, yeah, so this is my bad. So I didn't match this output when I deployed. So when I grabbed the output, which is going to be this thing, because these are all outputs, to grab the URL, the resource was not correct. If I change the resource name in webhooks to match, I bet it will work. Got to go to my phone number. So let's go ahead and grab it now correctly. We don't have to deploy anything because it was just the output. So let's copy this and I'll change the end to sentiment. Go in here, go to our webhooks, paste it, and then we're just going to change the end to sentiment / and save. So now if we go ahead and send a text message again and we go to our logs, we will see that they should be fine, I hope. So let's go to our logs. But yeah, it looks like delivered is happening. So hopefully you guys are getting a response back of hello world. It looks like I just sent a text and that's working for me too. So let's go back to our code and do the thing that we want to do with this. So which is get out of the template. Let's close the terminal so we can see our code. We need to send this parsed. Actually, let's double check in CloudWatch logs that this actually printed correctly when your text hit this code. One thing really fast, check our logs and make sure that those variables printed appropriately. There we go. As you can tell, I like to use Twilio a lot. It's one of my favorite third-party tools. Okay, so this is the let's see, the first object that we're printing is the body of the message. Remember, we're extracting the lowercase body out of the event object coming to us. And as I said, I knew it was a URL, which is why we parsed it. And then once we parsed it, we're able to take the capital body out of it, which is your actual text message. And you can see it's an array, which is why we took the 0th element out of it. So now we do know that we have the, so I bet it printed parsed. We do know that we have the appropriate thing now, so we can send that text to comprehend. Let's go back to our code. So we printed parse, but we really wanted to print text, but that's okay. We know that we have the appropriate thing. So we need to call comprehend. So we are going to do that using the AWS JavaScript SDK. And we did import it, right? Yeah, we imported Bodo. So we don't need to do that. Sorry, I lost my mouse for a sec. Okay, we're back. So we're going to establish the comprehend client. So we're going to say Bodo3 client and then comprehend. Now we have the client. And then we want to call detect sentiment. So we want to set it up equal to a response. And we're going to call client detect sentiment. And we have to pass it 2 parameters. One is the actual text of the sentiment that we want to analyze, which is going to be our text message. And then the second one is the language code, which in this case is English. I hope that you're sending me English text messages because I am not analyzing sentiment for anything other than English. And so then we're going to say the response that we get from comprehend is an object. I can actually show you guys what it looks like really fast. You can see it. So AWS Bodo3 comprehend. Let's go to the docs. Sorry, I think I said JavaScript somewhere, but I am using Python. I switch back and forth very frequently, so apologies for that. That was confusing. So let's see, comprehend, where are you? There you are. All right, so we imported this, we established the client just as it asked. We go to detect sentiment, we're calling it with text and language code, and this is what's coming back to us. We get this object back with the actual sentiment that is determined. So this is going to be like the highest percentage that the model thinks it is. So it's making an inference. And then the scores in each category. So, you know, if it's coming back positive, it might be 95% positive here, and all the other numbers are much lower percentages. So it's going to take the highest percentage and give us back the sentiment that way. So we're going to pull the sentiment key out of it, and this is what I'm going to return to you. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say sentiment equals response, and we're going to pull that sentiment key out. And then now we need to return this now, because that was the whole premise of what we were building, right? So let's concatenate this now to be sentiment. So now we have this XML coming back, and the body of the message is our sentiment from comprehend, and then that should work, hopefully. So let's go ahead and deploy one more time. So we're going to do Command-Shift-P. We're going to deploy. Yep, we know that we want to use the same SAM template. And we're in US West 2. Our bucket is Twilio Sentiment Webinar. And by the way, the reason that SAM needs a bucket is because that's where it stores our code, and then Lambda is able to reference it from that bucket. So Twilio Sentiment Webinar, and then we're deploying. So then we're going to test it out and see if it works. I'm going to put that phone number back on the screen so you guys can see it, and you can start sending text messages. Go ahead and put that phone number back on the screen. And I'm going to say this is the best webinar ever as my test. Well, we got to wait for it to deploy, but let's check on that. Successful. All right, send that text message. I got back positive. I don't know if it worked for all of you, but it worked for me. So that actually concludes the app that we were going to build. This code is going to be available at this GitHub account. I will check it in, so it will be there for you. That's my information. And hopefully you guys will take advantage of using the VS Code Toolkit. It definitely makes building, deploying, and debugging serverless applications much, much easier. And hopefully you had fun interacting with this live demo. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.